Most of us are exhausted because we try to be a hero for everyone else while our own house is burning down. We think saying yes to every small plea for help makes us a good person. We pour ourselves out until there is nothing left, believing that self-sacrifice is the only way to prove our worth to the world. But being a good person can sometimes be the most dangerous thing you ever do. There is a specific threshold where kindness turns into a catastrophe, and you need to know exactly where that line is. Before your world goes dark, the Atlantic Ocean in late autumn is not a body of water. It is a hungry, grey beast. Off the coast of a rugged, unnamed peninsula, a lone lighthouse stood on a jagged tooth of rock miles from any real comfort. The wind here didn't just blow, it shrieked, carrying a fine mist of salt that coated everything in a sticky, corrosive film. Inside the thick stone walls, Ilias moved with the practiced, heavy rhythm of a man who understood that his life was secondary to the light. The lighthouse was his world, a vertical sanctuary of iron, oil, and glass. Every night, his primary task was simple but absolute: keep the great lamp burning. The ships navigating the treacherous shoals depended on that steady, golden heartbeat to stay alive. Elias lived by a strict ration. Once a month, a supply boat would battle the swells to bring him canisters of high-grade oil. It was enough to keep the lamp bright from dusk till dawn with only a small margin for error. He spent his days polishing the massive Fresnel lens, ensuring that not a single speck of soot dimmed the warning he sent out to the mariners. He was a man of few words. His hands were calloused from hauling buckets, and his eyes perpetually squinting against the glare. But he was not a cold man. He knew the people in the small fishing village on the mainland, and they knew him as the steady guardian of the coast. One evening, as a biting frost began to settle over the rocks, a knock echoed against the heavy oak door at the base of the tower. It was an old woman from the village. Her face was etched with the exhaustion of poverty. She explained that her grandson was shivering in the dark, and they had run out of oil for their single, small lamp. "Just a cup, Elias," she pleaded. Her voice was barely audible, over the roar of the tide, just enough to get him through the night. Elias looked at his canisters. He calculated the burn time. A cup wouldn't hurt, he thought. It was a small act of mercy. He filled a jar for her, and she vanished back into the mist, her blessings trailing behind her. 2 nights later, another visitor arrived. This time, it was a man whose wife was laboring with a difficult birth. The midwife needed light to see, to save both mother and child, and their supply had failed. The man's eyes were wide with a primal fear. Elias felt the weight of the mission again, but this time it was a human life, right in front of him. How could a beacon for strangers at sea be more important than a mother in the village? He poured out a pint this time. Then came the neighbor whose roof had leaked. Then the fisherman who needed to mend his nets. Each time, the request was small. The need was genuine, and the gratitude was immense. Elias became a local Heroa man of boundless charity who shared what little he had to keep the village hearths warm. By the middle of the month, the air turned unusually still. Experienced sailors knew this was the breath before the blow. A massive storm system was swirling in the deep Atlantic, heading straight for the peninsula. Elias went to his storage room to prepare for a long, brutal night. He lifted the first canister. It was light. He He checked the second. It was half empty. A cold realization washed over him, sharper than the sea spray. He had been so focused on the small fires in the village that he had forgotten the mathematics of his primary charge. He began to measure the remaining oil with trembling hands. He had enough for perhaps 4 hours. The sun was already dipping below a horizon of bruised purple clouds. The storm hit with a violence that shook the very foundation of the tower. Waves the size of houses slammed against the rock, sending plumes of white foam 60 feet into the air. The wind howled through the ventilation shafts like a dying animal. Elias climbed the spiral staircase to the lantern room, his heart hammering against his ribs. He lit the wick. The great lens began its slow, majestic rotation. The beam cut through the chaos, a sword of light defying the darkness. But downstairs, the canisters were nearly dry. He watched the oil level in the lamp's reservoir drop. With agonizing slowness, he searched every corner of the lighthouse for a stray drop. Anything that would burn. He even considered rendered fat or old rags, but he knew the precision of the lamp required the purity of the oil. He had given away at 3 a.m. In the absolute peak of the hurricane's rage, the flame began to sputter. It flickered once, twice, and then, with a soft hiss, it vanished. The lantern room, once a temple of gold, was plunged into a terrifying, suffocating blackness. Elias stood in the dark, his hands gripping the cold brass railing, listening to the roar of the ocean. 10 minutes later, above the screaming wind, he heard it, a sound that would haunt him for the rest of his days. It was the sickening, rhythmic thud of wood splintering against stone. Then came the screams, thin, desperate, swallowed almost instantly by the Atlantic, a merchant vessel, blinded by the storm and searching for the light that wasn't there, had been driven directly onto the reef. Elias ran to the gallery, peering into the void, but he saw nothing but the white teeth of the breakers. By morning, the shore was littered with the broken ribs of the ship and the silent bodies of the crew. The oil he had given to light a few bedrooms had cost dozens of lives in the deep. We often confuse being busy with being effective, and we confuse being nice with being good. The tragedy of the lighthouse keeper is the tragedy of the modern soul. We give away our oil, our time, our energy, our focus to every passing demand, until we have nothing left for the one thing we were actually put here to do. When you neglect your core mission to satisfy the minor needs of others, you aren't being a saint. You are creating a future disaster. Integrity isn't just about honesty. It's about the fierce protection of your primary purpose. If your lamp goes out, everyone in your orbit eventually hits the rocks. I've spent too many years trying to carry everyone else's water, while my own well ran dry. I know the guilt of saying no to a friend in need, but I've also felt the absolute horror of realizing I failed at the one thing that truly mattered, because I was too busy being helpful to the world. You have a specific light that only you can tend. Don't let the small requests of the day steal the fuel you need for the storms of the night. Keep your reservoir full, not out of selfishness, but out of a higher duty to the ships that are counting on you. Plant another seed of wisdom in your soul every day by hitting subscribe and joining our journey of focus.